this wide a view of me, and it's a different kind of view, but I'll take it. I'll take it for today. This is kind of an impromptu one. We don't have Drew Crew today, and we did get an interesting question on Discord. So why not? Why not just go live for a little bit, see what we can see about specific things. If you're new to Clinic Hours, this is where we just come in, we answer questions, talk about your role-playing game experiences, whether that's a tabletop role-playing game, a LARP, or something online or in between. Are we still experimenting with YouTube layouts? I mean, a little bit. A little bit. It looks like we have both chats on. So here, let me take care of that, because we definitely don't need both of the chats showing. Let's see. What is this chat? Here. That we have both of them still active. There we go. We also have to change the topic. So we're just gonna say that this is enough. There we are. Hey, Fector. Recursive fractals. I mean, that's what we're always in for, right? That's what we're going for. I'm gonna steal the chat window here. Normally it's up on the screen for the players to see, but this time around it's just me, and this window tends to be a little faster on the draw. So I'm gonna take advantage of that. Just take this here. Hey, TT. Weirdness. Parametheus. Vector. Recursive Fractal sounds like a band name. I mean, if it isn't a band name, it should be, shouldn't it? That just sounds awesome. This is the wrong chat window for me to have. This is the right. There we go. The prescription is almost always word hole usage. Yeah, but it depends. What kind of word hole are we looking for here? And what should we be using our word hole to say? There's a little more nuance in the prescription, but this is kind of like the idea of what dosage should we be prescribing here, because on the one hand, it could be a life-saving pain medication. On the other hand, it could just get somebody to OD on morphine. So we're figuring this out as we go along. But in terms of today, you're seeing a slightly more expanded view of what it is to have me sit down at my station here. I'm not at my typical PC. That's actually just right there. But I'm here because this is where kind of like the chat's already all set up. And honestly, this is set up kind of the way that we would want anyway. So let's try it here. Hey, Gil. Mia Osub, good to see all of you here. Know that Scott may still be streaming at the moment. I should check. He was doing some tuned. Let's see if that is still happening. Nope. Okay, they've gone offline, so we're not currently stepping on their toes. Today we have one specific topic to discuss, and we actually have a second one which was brought up a little bit later. But of course, if there's anything that you want to talk about, please by all means put it in there. All you got to do is just drop an !Q, then a space, and then type whatever you want. It'll go into my queue. I can't display the queue on screen at the moment. That functionality has been lost. Been lost for a little while. We tried to bring it back with a different program. Turns out that program doesn't really like using YouTube all that much. It's kind of locked locally to Twitch. And since we're not on Twitch anymore, can't use it. So we're still looking for a solution for that, but at the very least, I can make sure that I don't miss your message as we go forward. Requiem making use of it right away, of course. Gotta prompt you for that one. So how's my day going? My day's going all right. I am alone in the house at the moment, and it's a beautiful day outside. So as soon as this is done, I'm basically going to go straight outside and actually spend some time soaking up some of the sun. We haven't had too many days like this year so far. Winter kind of lingers here, and spring is very, very short. It's going to end up being spring for about 2 weeks, and then it's going to drop right into summer, and it's just going to be deadly hot and humid. So I'm going to enjoy the beautiful weather as I can. It's 18 degrees outside right now, kind of perfect. Touching grass, I don't know, Flower of August. Not sure if grass is in my future. Maybe my balcony and then perhaps some pavement. Although I should touch grass, so maybe I should. Maybe I'll go out and roll around a little bit on the grass that hasn't quite yet had time to fully bloom, to come into its own, as it were. So, just a couple of things for you just before we start. If you are one of our Patreon supporters, you got access to some information about how Kate built the new layout for our new campaign, Datafall. We've had one session of it so far. That's going to be happening again tomorrow, or session 2. But we really appreciate everybody who's given us that kind of support. That support went to, most recently, us being able to commission character art for the first time. And maybe I'll be able to step through how we did that commissioning. That might be our next post on Patreon, to show just how we use this money. Because at the moment, the technology we have set up is kind of where we want it to be. We don't have any specific needs that we need to address right now, and people did ask us a lot about what could we do in terms of making our characters spring to life a little bit more. So we commissioned art this time around. We're all really happy with how it came out, and that's thanks to you. So we do appreciate that. And it gives us a chance to support some artists. In this particular case, we supported Zizaz, who is the artist who also has previously worked with Pinky Pact on their character art over on twitch.tv/PinkyPact. So it was a great recommendation that we got from Aragorn, and now we are benefiting from it as well. At the moment, I'm not sure if we have Paximo in, but there was an interesting kind of question dropped a few days ago, and so we're going to take a look at that. TT, yeah, absolutely. We can definitely go into how we decided on the artist, how we wanted that to go along. But we also just, it can be interesting to see how did we describe the characters? How did we collect the references? What would you do if you were commissioning art for yourself? I have a little bit of insight on this in terms of this is part of my job description. So I kind of treated it a little bit like I was at my job, whereas your results may vary from person to person. Different artists may have different needs for how they want their references provided, but I can at least give you some insight in how I do it in terms of my specific process. All right, Paximo dropped a question in. I'm going to read it out loud. It is a long scenario, but I think that we'll all be able to see some sort of what's the hottest character art. I think we'll be able to see some parallels for things that you might have seen in your own games. I know that this is definitely a scenario that has happened to me in the past. It's a scenario that I'm sure has happened to a lot of you. So let's take a look. Looking for some insights on a question. A while ago, I posted about a game that I had been playing, but had suddenly gone on break when a player had to bow out. After 2 years of basically no communication, the DM suddenly messaged and we started up again. Sans the one player. It was fine for a month or so, but then the same issues cropped up. Constant last minute, like less than 30 minutes cancellations, the DM actively telling us not to talk to each other during the game, not as characters, but as friendly chit chat in a down moment. Going so far as to log out for 15 minutes without a word because we were all laughing about a joke, and the game overall being very railroady. I stuck with it because I love the character and want to finish the story. And I used to enjoy the time with the other players. However, over the course of the past year, things became less and less enjoyable. I stopped being upset when we canceled, or didn't play for an entire month or two, but I still wanted to finish the campaign. Cut to the end of February, beginning of March. We have canceled 3 sessions and are getting ready to play that night. And one of the other players posts that they need to back out and will be out for a month or so due to mental health issues. This person has since gone completely out of contact. I have no problem that someone needed to back out due to health issues or concerns. I am not trying to force someone back before they are ready. However, I really don't want to do another 2 years of maybe we will come back, but maybe not, but we never talk about it. So my question is, would I be wrong to, sometime next month, assuming nothing has changed, to ask the DM and other players if they are still feeling as if they want to continue, or if we are ready to move on? I would phrase it more elegantly, of course. Now, I see that you're here. Hi. Glad that you're in. A few things crossed my mind when I first read this. And my initial answer was the one that sort of gives this a little bit of a, okay, let's break this down. Let's break down what the problem is. And we'll see if it's something that can be salvaged. And if it can't, or if it can, that means different directions on where to go. My initial answer was to take a look at this and say, okay, well, if you love the character, that's already great. That's a great sign. And if you're interested in how the story ends, that also matters. If you're loving the story, that makes a lot of difference. It's the same thing if you're watching a television series or if you're watching a movie. If you're invested in the characters, if you're invested in the story, clearly that means that you are, at least to a certain degree, having a good time. But there's a couple of red flags that pop up immediately in this story. And they're ones that I think that it's kind of telling when they're mentioned in the context of what's being described. This isn't to say that it's clear and it's obvious and clearly there's always a right answer here. There isn't. I have a lack of context in terms of this story, right? I wasn't there. I don't know the exact scenario. I don't know everybody's personalities involved. I can only give what I have as an outside observer. But the first red flag that I would point out is that the dungeon master in this game is, the word that I used originally was petulant. Somebody who doesn't quite have a handle on the table. Now, the dungeon master is a participant, as everybody else, and the DM is allowed to have fun, just like everybody else. They are an equal share of the game. But the DM often has, as a responsibility, the control of the pacing and of the table, right? There's a reason why there's a referee, and the DM is the referee. In a game like this, it's not just about the rules. The DM often also takes on the task of guiding the table where it needs to go. If there's a lot of table talk and it's derailing the game, the DM is the one who kind of tries to shift people back on course. If there's a player who's feeling overrun and clearly isn't participating, it's the DM who is the one who's the one supposed to clock that, reach out, try to develop that player and that character back into the story. But what we're not getting here in this message, when it's originally described to us, is a lot of praise for this DM. There's praise for the fact that, you know, the story is interesting and you're curious about what the story is going to end up in. But the words that we use to describe the DM are things like the DM actively tells us not to talk to each other during the game. The DM logs out for 15 minutes without a word because they're laughing at a joke. These are not the actions that somebody takes who's in control of the table. So that's the first red flag that I would throw up there. Also, hey everyone, glad that you're here. If the DM can't control the table, so in White Wolf games this would be known as the storyteller. A lot of games use the term game master, so we'll probably use game master as kind of the generic term for this. If a game master is clearly at odds with the players, that's already a bad sign. There are ways to fix this. Using your word hole is probably the best one, right? You can discuss what your expectations are for the table. Hey, I get that you want to socialize, but once we're in the middle of the game, I want things to keep going. I want them to be proper. I want people to be focused on playing as opposed to focused on out of character stuff. But the players might not have the same expectations, right? The players might be, this is a social gathering for us. This isn't just a time to tell stories. This isn't just a time to play a game. It's also a time for us to catch up, for us to relax, for us to enjoy each other's company. And so there needs to be a consensus about how much table talk is allowed at the game. When we play on our streams on Sundays, we start the session with 15 minutes of just getting into it with each other, talking. You know, sure, we go over things like recaps and experience spending and all of that, but a lot of it is just us socializing. In fact, players actually gather like long before the stream starts. So we kind of get a lot of that out of the way right at the start. And then during the game, we still have time to take some moments. And we have a break in the middle where it's kind of known, like, okay, well, you can get up, you can get water, you can go to the bathroom, you can discuss whatever you want to discuss. But we do allow for table talk in our games, but there's also kind of an understanding that if things got too much off the rails, if somebody kind of goes, okay, so back into it, and everybody sort of understands, great, it's time to move back. But that's not clear that this is part of the game in this point. And as CT says, I mean, you're also friends as well as RPG partners. And that's very true. If you are not friends alongside RPG partners, then I could understand a little more, but then why are you playing, right? Like, what's the point if that's how everyone's going to be reacting? So we're not going to assume that people here don't have a social circle in and amongst themselves. So that's the first thing. The second is the reactions when the DM doesn't get their way. Logging out for 15 minutes without a word, it's a bad sign. Now, what I'm not going to do is throw the DM under the bus right away. I could see this being important if, for instance, the DM continually asked and again and again, and everybody just ignored the DM or mocked the DM for asking for this sort of thing. And I could see them just being like, okay, well, no, forget it. Nobody's listening to me, and then disconnecting. I could see that. But in terms of what that means right now, that means that we've already reached a breakdown of communication. We've already stopped using our word holes, and we've started using last-ditch efforts to get things going the way that you want, right? If this was an in-person game, I'm going to assume that this was an online game because we talk about things like logging on. But if this was an in-person game and I got up and walked out of the room, that would be seen as quite a significant gesture, right? That's the kind of thing that immediately, that would be the equivalent of my stopping, my holding up a stop card in terms of our safety rules. And the thing is that when I hold up a stop card in the context of a game, that's an invitation for us all to say, okay, we need to take a break, we need to stop, but we also, once we're ready, we need to talk about this. We need to go over it. Here, there was no attempt to communicate at this point. There was an attempt to just leave. That is a sign of a breakdown of communication. So that's kind of some red flags there, right off the bat, with the DM. And as much as I don't like to other a game master, I will say that the game master is kind of like a linchpin in the context of a role-playing game. A player can drop out and a game typically can survive, or it has a much greater chance of surviving. DM drops out and the game's survival is very, very low. The chance of it is low. Oftentimes at that point you just have to start a new game. But if the DM is the one who is already walking out on people, refusing to communicate, clearly at odds with the rest of the table, then right away I would say you need to either work this out with the DM, you need to sit down, you need to figure this out, or you have to accept that your playstyles are not compatible. But these aren't the only red flags that we have in this scenario. There's other things too. There is the fact that they can't get the game off the ground. Scheduling problems. It is the end boss of all adult tabletop role-playing games, is scheduling. We all have lives. And lives are messy, complicated things. And when you get together for an event, that takes planning often, and that takes sacrifice. Sacrifice seems like a weird word to use in the context of a role-playing game, right? Why would I need to sacrifice something for fun? But we make sacrifices all the time. If you were invited to go to a wedding, you would plan that in advance. You're not going to plan to wash your hair or go grocery shopping in the middle of the wedding. You're going to make that commitment. You're going to say, okay, well, I am not going to do something else. I'm going to go to this wedding. A wedding is a priority. That's an important thing to do. For a role-playing game, everybody has to make it a priority. Now, it does not have to be the number one priority. Obviously, if you've broken your arm and you need to go to the hospital, go to the hospital, right? But you do that for a wedding. You do that for a funeral. You do that for a major event as well. If you're sick and you can't drag yourself out of bed, that's an important note to make. That is a priority. For instance, for us, in our Sunday games, we have priorities that do actually go above the stream. If one of us has work, we usually say that work outweighs the game. Now, we don't often work on Sundays, but there are times where it becomes inevitable. Most of us are gig workers at this game, and gig workers often do not have control over their schedules the way that they would like. If a rehearsal is scheduled for a Sunday afternoon, that means that person probably can't make session, and they're not about to not go to rehearsal just because of a game. So we planned our game to happen at a certain time when we were the most likely to be available, but we also plan around it. We do not put off our work that can be time adjusted, and then kind of say, oh, well, it's Sunday, I didn't get my work done, so I guess I'm going to have to do it, so I'm going to have to bow out a game. We understand that our game is a priority and that it supersedes general want. We are always open to the idea that a player can come forward and say, I might not be able to make it on a certain Sunday, but almost always that happens with plenty of advance warning. We know weeks or months in advance, and we make plans around it. Maybe we organize it so that the session can run without one of the players. We write somebody out of the story just for one session or two sessions in order to keep going. Maybe we make arrangements for an alternate kind of stream, whether it's a clinic hours like what we're doing today, or maybe it's also something that we can organize a guest star to come in for a one-shot. These are all things that are possible. But we know in advance. We don't cancel without warning because we make the time and effort to make sure that we're available at this time. My family is aware. Sunday afternoons, I'm generally spoken for, and I appreciate that they're cool with this. I'm sure that there are points where they would really rather that I be able to make it, but I've basically said, hey, family get-togethers, totally possible, but they gotta either happen Friday evenings, Saturdays, or Sunday evenings, but they can't happen Sunday afternoons. I am spoken for, unless there is an overwhelming need, right? If it's like, if my sister was getting married on a Sunday afternoon, yeah, I would probably cancel games so that I could go to that, right? Like, that's fine. But if it's just we're all getting together for dinner, great, but it's got to be dinner, can't be lunch. The fact that people could not get this game off the ground means that players were not making the game priority. And that means that there is a fundamental lack of respect for the game itself. Obviously, the bad luck can happen, right? Things can turn up at the last possible second. That is completely understandable. And I'm very, very sympathetic to the idea that someone might say, I have a mental health issue that is preventing me from participating. It's the same as any other kind of illness, right? If something is preventing you from being able to play, then you should not play. That's fine. But the fact that it keeps happening over and over and over again, the fact that somebody is not making an effort to prioritize the game means that person is showing a fundamental lack of priority for the game, and to a certain extent, that's a lack of respect. Canceling at the last minute is a lack of respect for everyone else's time, because it means that I've already made the sacrifices so that I could be here at the right time for the game. So, for instance, Sunday afternoons. I've already said no to people who say that they want to do something on Sunday. I've already turned down other offers. I've already made it clear that I'm going to be ready for this game. And then if I find out 30 minutes before a game that it's not going to happen, then that means that now I don't actually have plans for a Sunday afternoon. And as an adult, my free time is limited. I don't have a whole lot of free time to throw around, so I like to make the most of it when I do have it. And now my plans have to change because you have made a decision unilaterally for the rest of the group that now the game cannot happen. In general, a game should have all of its players present. Some games, it is possible to run them without one player or two players present. In general, you kind of want everybody there. But Paximo, you've also said something important here. You made me realize too, when we cancel, I was the only one who would offer to pick up another day that week. I would ask and no one would answer. The things you remember. So that's the other thing. When we know we can't make a Sunday, we bring it forward. We bring it forward as soon as we know that we can't make a Sunday, but then we start making plans together. What can we do about this? How can we make sure that the game continues properly? Often it means, okay, well, then let's all agree that in this session, we're going to find a way to separate the group. So that means that one of the players has a character that's off to the side. Therefore, we can continue running with the other two. Maybe it's as simple as saying, okay, so we can't play this Sunday, but we also don't want to go too long with a break. So let's play again on Wednesday instead. We can all make a specific effort to be there Wednesday evening. We can all play. But there's a willingness to work with the group to figure out a solution. It's not just, I can't do it. You heave the boulder in the middle of the pond, the ripples go out, and you don't care what's happening. You've already just stated, it doesn't work for me. And so therefore, that's all that matters to me in this moment. That's all I care about. But that's, again, a lack of respect for everybody else. Paxmo saying, yeah, and for me as a parent, I just spent all day running around to make sure I'm available, so last minute changes are super frustrating. Parenting is a massive time commitment. It's a massive effort to shift things around in terms of a schedule, because oftentimes you're responsible not just for yourself, but for your children, for your family. And this isn't just children. You could be a caretaker for an elderly parent, an aunt, uncle, brother, cousin, anything like that. If you have a responsibility to take care of somebody else, that means that you are possibly planning your entire life around this moment. And being able to have that ripped away from you sucks. It just sucks. So that's a hard thing to deal with. Flower of August saying, the moment, I'll cancel today because I don't feel like it is a valid thought. Our player or GM is no longer prioritizing the game. Also, discuss point for later while I'll remember it. If you ever feel relieved that a game is canceled, that's a massive red flag. So relief is an emotion that we'll talk about in a second, because you're true. You're absolutely right about that. But that's something I've discussed at another point, so we'll bring it back. But it's a point about quitting. We're not looking at quitting here as much as we're looking at red flags. But here, red flags are just everywhere in the context of what's being described. But the other thing is, there isn't a whole lot of attempt to defend the game coming from this question. This is the sort of thing that you'll see sometimes. Reddit is famous for certain subreddits, such as Am I Overreacting or Am I the Asshole? And these are subreddits where somebody is to tell a story, and the idea, or at least the original idea, was to find out, am I the jerk in this particular situation? Did I do something wrong? Or am I wrong to feel the way that I'm feeling? And 99% of these posts, I mean it, like the percentage is huge. What the person is looking for is validation and not a genuine curiosity. They're going to present the story and it will be extremely biased, and there's no way that anybody can interpret it in any other way. These are the equivalents of saying, I was walking down the street minding my own business when somebody came out to me and sucker punched me in the face and broke my nose. And then when that person dropped their wallet, I didn't pick it up for them and hand it back to them. I just walked right on. Am I the asshole? Like, what they're looking for is for somebody to pat them on the back. The way that they present the story is done in such a way as to aggrandize themselves and to validate their own opinions. When we tell a story, often how we tell the story is indicative of what our true feelings are in terms of the story. Now, I do not doubt that some of the people who post on these subreddits genuinely are trying to ask the question. They're just incapable of presenting an unbiased opinion. So, when I look at this, what I'm looking for here for Paximo's question, I don't think Paximo is asking this because there's an opportunity here for everybody to just come along and say, oh, you're so hard done by, and validate. This isn't a validation question. This is a genuine question. But what we don't have is, oh man, like, this is a real problem. This is the best game I've ever played in. The story is so rich and I enjoy everybody's company so much and the DM is incredible, but for some reason we just can't get it off the ground. And instead it's, so I've been playing the game for a while and then it went on break and then it came back and so it was okay, but then things got worse. Like, where's the appreciation for the game? It was it's not here. And if it was here, then my advice would be a lot more focused on like, okay, this is something that we're trying to get back off the ground. We're trying to make this better. Let's go over the steps of what we can do in order to try to resurrect this game, even though the chances might be slim. That's not the impression that I got here. The impression that I got here is this game kinda is already a bother. And then it gets into something very significant, and this is where the feeling of relief comes in. There's the issue here is saying, I stopped being upset when we canceled or didn't play for an entire month or two, but I still wanted to finish the campaign. These are two different feelings that we have. This is an important point to bring up. One of them is, I would like to see a conclusion to this story. That's a natural thing for us to want. I've invested a lot of time, a lot of effort, and not just the individual minutes that I spent playing the game, but also this has been going on for years. It deserves to have a finish. This is a feeling that is like endemic to us. When we start a project, we want to see it finished. If I spend hours on building a cabinet, I want the cabinet to be done. If I start painting a painting, it would be great if the painting could be finished. It means that I get to close the book on it. My brain can relax. I can put it aside. I can say it is done and I no longer have to worry about it. That's independent from fun. That's independent from I'm enjoying the process of creating. That's I should finish this because it's there. As you say, Paximo, the sunk cost fallacy. That is a very good way of putting it. Sunk cost, right? Sunk cost means I've already spent money, time, effort, emotional investment in something. Therefore, I don't want to see that wasted. But the process of playing in a role-playing game is that the telling of the story is the fun part. And here's the part that might sound a little kind of annoying and self-aggrandizing for myself. But when I was working on the web series LARPs, and at some point I was going to conventions and I had people who were fans of the web series come up to me and they would start talking about their own games. And here's this thing, and I've said this before, and hear me out through to the end before you judge me on this one. I was interested in the passion that the players had for their games. That's the part that I liked. The actual details of what happened in their games, I could care less. And the reason why is because the whole aspect of role-playing is that you are part of it. You are there when the story is being told. You are contributing to that moment. You are part of the story. And so it hits you on a different emotional level. It hits you on a personal investment, but a role-playing game is not the same as a written novel or a screenplay or even a module that you've written down. It hasn't been edited. It hasn't been massaged, workshopped. It is a product of its time. It's the equivalent of you going up to somebody and saying, I saw this great stand-up comedian, and then you start telling that comedian's jokes. Some of them might land, but you probably don't have the experience of developing the patter, the rhythm. You aren't on a stage surrounded by hundreds of people who are laughing. You are just one-on-one. The jokes won't land in the same way, even though the words are the same. So when it comes to playing in a role-playing game, that is part of the experience. And so the story, as much as it's good to see a story finish, as much as that's a great thing, if the process of making that story end is frustrating or annoying, if it's not something that brings you joy, the story is not worth finishing. You do not have, almost certainly, you do not have the next War and Peace, the next Grapes of Wrath, the next Hamlet sitting in front of you. You have something different. You have something possibly even better. You have something very personal that that you've built with your friends. That's a special shared language and experience that you have with them, and that's wonderful. But only because it was fun while you were doing it. The instant that it's not fun while you're doing it, it's not worth finishing. So when somebody says, I want to see the story finished, but they're also saying, I'm not having fun finishing the story, I almost always will put the priority on your fun. Your fun is most important. The story is not, because the story, it depends on the fun. Now, if somebody said, we're one session away from finishing, maybe at that point you can say, okay, that's worth an afternoon of my time so that I can get closure on this, I can see the story finished out. But if the answer is, I don't know how many more sessions it's going to take for us to hit the story, and each time I'm dreading the moment where we all sit down and playing, that's hard. That's really hard. That makes it difficult. Prometheus says, side point, but I also think this is part of the reason being in the live stream hits differently to watching the VOD. At least with RPG Clinic, the audience is involved differently to watching back. That's absolutely true. But there's also something else about doing a live stream. If you're present, it means you can react in the moment, and we as a group make it a priority for us to see the reactions happening, and we try to let that color the way the stream goes. Whether it's because you notice us reading it and you see our reactions, or we respond directly to it, or we wait and then we bring it up at break, or we talk to you afterwards about it in the Discord. That's something that we like doing. We like the participation. We like the fact that the fourth wall is not an impermeable barrier. But if you're participating with a group and the group is experiencing it as a whole, then the game hits differently than if you are experiencing it alone. The community is what can often make the game feel bigger and more alive. If you are sharing it and you can talk about what happened with somebody else, you interact with it differently than if you're sitting alone reading a book and then putting it down and then walking away. This is why things like book clubs also exist. It's a different feeling to read a book alone than to read a book and then discuss it with somebody else. But it's also a different feeling if you're reading a book and discussing it with somebody else who has also just recently experienced it. So they've experienced it in the same context that you did, the same world events happening around you. You're the same place in history, right? Like, it's not, oh, I read this when I was 7, now I'm reading it again when I'm 40. You're going to see it differently than somebody who's reading it for the first time at 40. So that's part of the reason why when we stream, we like it when people can show up live, but we don't insist on it. What we do like is when people discuss it on Discord, because that changes your interaction with it. It means that it can mean something a little different to you. The other thing is, and this is not to try to toot our own horns, we've been doing this for a long time. We are professionals in terms of live entertainment. We do our best to try to make the game interesting for everyone. But we also, as a very deliberate choice, have decided that we are not trying to entertain other people before trying to entertain ourselves. If we were trying to do this for a job, the games would feel different. They would be different, and they wouldn't have the same feeling as they have now. We would be going for a wider audience. We'd be playing to a more common denominator. We'd probably choose a different game because D&D is far more popular and people will often search for D&D as opposed to role-playing game. We would have snappier dialogue, snappier fights, easier to understand plot lines, characters. We would spend more time building things up. We'd have more props. We'd edit the streams, that kind of thing. So it is possible, by the way, to get me to giggle during a game. That it has happened. So don't give up. You're getting there. But if you're playing alone, or sorry, if you're playing with your group, and other people aren't watching, you're creating that story for yourselves. If the story isn't worth it, don't finish it. Now, I have stated repeatedly in the context of these games that ending a game is really difficult. Ending a game is also one of the, if it's not the end boss is scheduling, but it is one of the greatest difficulties for a role-playing game is actually coming to a conclusion. Because the temptation is to grab hold of a game that you're enjoying and hold it tight and not let it go, because you don't want it to end. You're enjoying it. When, in fact, a lot of people would be better served putting a pin in it, closing the story out, and starting something new. So we hold on to something until it kind of ends up dying an ignoble death. We see this a lot when it comes to things like television shows. Often, someone says, hey, this show's making us money. Keep making more. And we keep making more, and we keep making more, and then there's just this sense that you've run out of things to say with these characters. You've run out of story that's fascinating. So the audience starts to peter off, they taper away, they don't care as much anymore. And instead of ending on a wonderful note, it ends with a whimper. Some of the most beloved shows on television are ones that very much said, we have X episodes, we're going to tell the story in X episodes, and then we're done. We're walking away from it. You can see examples of this in children's television. Gravity Falls is an animated series that lasted for 2 seasons, said everything it needed to say, and despite the fact that it was quite popular, ended. Because that was what they decided on. That was enough. It did not need more. You could go with adult shows. Breaking Bad had a plan. And while they changed that plan back and forth, even though it was doing wonderful numbers, it ended because it had told its story. That's finished. That's all we needed. Lost, it was a show that kept throwing out seasons because it kept making money, perhaps for Requiem, but the other thing that they unfortunately had was they didn't have an ending. They've admitted that they threw a lot of things out there and were like, I don't know where this is going to go. Let's see. And so they did not have a satisfying arc because they just didn't know where the arc was going. So they kind of kept going as long as the show was popular without necessarily having a plan. A funny thing to say, because role-playing games often don't have a plan. But again, role-playing games are private. They're with you. So it's very hard to end unless you have that plan. That's why when we decide to end a game, if you are a Patreon subscriber, I wrote a whole dissertation about when we decided to end our most recent campaign, Montreal by Moonlight, and the steps that we took afterwards. But we also decided to end that campaign months in advance of it actually ending because we wanted to prepare for the end. We wanted to make sure. Anyway, you go back to this. Thing is, in the end, you're still canceling sessions. It is a struggle to get people to play, but the most telling thing that you mentioned in this is that you felt relief, or that you stopped being upset when games didn't happen. Yeah, you didn't actually mention relief. That's someone else's words, but you said that you stopped being upset. It's a pretty good sign to me that means that you are losing the investment in the game itself. And a game deserves to be something that you're excited about, that you look forward to. You know, if you're 17 and you have all the time in the world and you're like, yeah, sure, we could play, that's great. I spent a long time in my youth being able to play games because I had all the free time that I wanted, and I didn't have to be super hype about a game because I knew that another one would happen because free time was something that we all had in spades. And if the game wasn't the best possible that it could be, that also didn't really matter that much because, hey, we got the time. But as an adult, free time is valuable. And not only is my free time valuable, the free time of everybody at the tables is valuable. So I want to make sure that that game is pretty damn good. And so I can't settle anymore for a game that's okay. I want to play a game that makes me feel good. I want to play a game that's like, this is fun and I am looking forward to the next session. I want to think about what might happen next. I want to be excited about the opportunities that may occur. I want to not know what's going to happen, and for that to be something that tickles my brain. Not, I could play. I could take it or leave it. Whatever. I don't have time for that anymore. I need to be more selective because I've made the sacrifices necessary to get me to that point. I have taken the moment to say, I have sacrificed my social time, my free time, my downtime, so that I could spend this role-playing. So let's make sure that the role-playing is worth it. When I was young, I used to think myself an extrovert. Then I got older and I thought myself an introvert. Now I kind of don't really feel like either label really applies to me very well. because I enjoy being gregarious to a point, but I also don't enjoy being around in large crowds as much as one time I guess I did. So there are times where I do want to very much be like, yo, I want to be left alone. I want to be alone with my partner. That's all I need. Sometimes I'm like, no, I really do want to see my friends. They energize me. They give me a creative boost. Let's go. Both of these things are true. And so it means that this is time that I value. So the red flags here are present. And you haven't given me green flags. The only thing that you've given me here is A, you seem to care about everybody's scheduling, which is great. Paximo, that is something that I think is quite valuable. As people said in the chat, it seems like you are the one who is most invested, but I would go a little bit further. So Ermethea says, from what you said, you're the person most invested in the game. I wouldn't say that. I would say I think you're the person most invested in respect. You're invested in making sure that the people at the table feel your respect for their time, their effort, their energy. You're the one who, if you need to cancel, you come up with alternate solutions. You're the one who makes the effort to be there for game, on time, ready to go. You're the one who tries to make sure that everybody's having a good time at the table. Remember, that's a responsibility for everybody. It's everybody's responsibility at the table to make sure that everybody else is having a great time. It is not the game master's responsibility, it's everyone's. And it seems like that's what you have right here, Paximo. Based on what you've written here, you are the one who shows respect. My hat's off to you. I appreciate that. And I think it's wonderful. And I think that that's not something that should be taken lightly. That is the most critical thing to the success of a role-playing game. What? That is the green flag that I'm seeing. It's you, not anyone else. And so therefore, what I'm seeing here is this game's not worth your time. These people are not worth your time as a group, as a collective group. Perhaps there are individuals who definitely are worth your time. That's great. But remember that somebody not being worth your time for this doesn't mean that they're bad people. It means that you're incompatible with them at this time. Somebody says, I can't play right now because I need to take a break for my own mental health. Fantastic. Glad that they're doing that. But while you're waiting for them, it means that you also can't be playing in other games if you have to wait for them to come back. Unless, of course, you decide that you're going to stop entirely and wait for them to come back. Maybe that's worth it, but maybe it's not. And I wouldn't, if I had to take a break from a game, I would not blame the other players by saying, we want to play something else because we don't want to sit around waiting around. My specific illness is not something that should force other people to make that kind of sacrifice. That isn't fair to them. Now, of course, it's fair to say, like, look, I can't make it today because I have a cold, and they're like, great, the game's over, we're starting a new one without you. Obviously, that's not the case. But if it's, I can't play, I don't know when I'm coming back, and I'm going to insist that everybody just sit on their hands until I come back, that's not fair. That's not quite right. So, that is key one. Key two, if this game clearly people aren't respecting your time and that you respect their time, that means that there is a game out there that is desperate for you because you're the kind of player that people want. One who respects, the one who is ready to make the sacrifices necessary but also put the effort in to make sure that everybody can play at a mutually beneficial time. Scheduling is something that at one point when I was running games, I said, look, I will spend the money on the source books. I will take the extra time that it takes to prepare for these games. I will put in all of that effort. The one thing that I won't do is schedule. You have to come up with a schedule and come to me because I will make the time for myself, but I don't want to deal with anybody else's schedule. I got tired of it. I got tired of dragging people around. Thankfully, I don't have to do that anymore. Now, I just am an equal participant with other people. And that is validating. I love the group that I play with right now because I don't have to worry about it, but I also don't have to say this is one part where I step back because I'm tired of it. Because it was also my job for a little while to say, like, great, I will find the next day that we can play. I will call everybody, because of course back then it was call everybody. I will call everybody to make sure that everybody's ready for that. I'm going to be the one to chase everybody down. And then at one point I said, no, if you want me, I'm there, but I'm not chasing. Thing is, you are somebody who I wouldn't have to chase. You would be somebody who I would be interested in having sit down at the table. So you playing in a game where they don't respect you is a waste of your time, but also think about the other groups that would love to have you, possibly you and other people who play in this game who might have the same attitude that you do. So that is something important too, to keep in mind, to remember, is that you deserve to have a game that you want to play in, and other groups would love to have you. So, moving on from that, what I said as my solution to this, I didn't get into the red flags here, that other people did, and they rightfully so. I was answering this also kind of off the cuff. I was, admittedly, I was still lying in bed when I was answering this question. Yes, it was 9 o'clock in the morning. I'll take no questions at this time. I said, I'd message the group and bow out. Not a conditional statement. No, if we don't fix this, I'm out, but a clean break. Now, the reason why I generally recommend clean breaks instead of making it a conditional or an ultimatum is because conditionals and ultimatums often send the wrong message. It makes it seem like I'm holding you hostage unless you do something I want. That's not where the case is here. I don't think this game is worth saving for the reasons that I outlined before. And so since the game's not worth saving, don't try to save it. But also, if you then say, look, because of this, this, and this, I gotta go, and if this changes, then I won't, I don't think that it'll change. But also, it's unreasonable to put people in a situation where they say, well, now I must react in a certain way or else the game is gonna fail. Don't do that to them. It's not worth it. Just say, I gotta go. I gotta go. I think the game is over for me. And if somebody presses you for the reason, I would say, look, I just find it too difficult. The scheduling keeps getting interrupted, and I need to find a game where I can know that it will happen regularly because my time is limited. And just put it that way. And you'll inevitably get people who'll be like, well, we'll try. The thing is, no, they won't. They will not try. You've already given them that chance. Over years, you've given them this chance. They're not going to change their behavior just because you've given them an ultimatum. The best teacher at this point is to say, then you lose me. Maybe we'll play again someday. I'm not saying to shut out all of these people out of your life, and I'm definitely not saying burn the bridge, but I am saying you will do everybody a favor if you give them the permission to let it go. If you say, that's it, I'm out. For me, the game is over. It gives everybody the permission to say, great, I'm out too. You're no longer a fish on the hook, thrashing in the water. You're saying, it's over. You're not waiting anymore. Because the temptation that the story is there, that maybe you'll get to finish the story. Oh, so tempting. So tempting. It's right there. Why can't I just... But now the story is not going to end. And instead of it dangling in front of you as something that keeps getting pulled further and further away that you just can't catch, you say the story is no longer available to be finished because I am gone. Everybody else has the permission now to let go too. And that is often a better way of closing things out. I'm done. Do not blame individual people. Not worth it. Not really. If somebody comes up to you with an earnest question and you genuinely feel like they want to do better, you can say, look, every single time that the game is canceled, it's been a problem. Because inevitably people are the heroes of their own stories and they will have their excuses. And I'm here to tell you right now that most of those excuses are probably bullshit. Saying, but I couldn't make this one game because of X. Well, what was X? Because I had no chance to do groceries all week, so I had to go grocery shopping that day. Well, why couldn't you do groceries all week? Well, because my car wasn't fixed. Okay, but why wasn't your car fixed? And I know that it seems like you're harping on something that, like, these are important things. Grocery shopping, make sure that your car is fixed depending on where you live. I live in a city where public transit is cheap and affordable and available, but other places you may not, and cars might be an important part of your life. But like, these are things that could have been taken care of before the day that you were playing. Absolutely. To the person who's doing it, it might not seem that way, because after all, what's convenient for you can be explained away as a necessity. But they will have their excuses. Don't give them the opportunity to give them to you. It's not going to be helpful, not for them, and definitely not for you. Just couldn't happen. I also said that you deserve to play in a game that excites you. And I think that's absolutely true. The story's not worth it if it doesn't excite you anymore. And remember that the process of getting to the end of the story is just as important. It's why I would say that there is also one last thing that you could try, which is say, everybody, I have one last game in me to tie up this story. One. So I would like to play on this day. It's the one day that I'm available. We're going to play, but then I got to go. I'm out. Otherwise, thanks everybody. Any break. Because if you can say that, then remember, that's like I will invest one afternoon in order to make sure that the story can have a conclusion. If you think that that's actually possible, do that. But I don't even think that's possible here. I don't even think it's worth it. So don't. The red flags are there. And the red flags generally are things that you cannot step away. Yellow flags are ones that I'm willing to overlook, or ones that I'd say, I'll start and we'll work on it. A yellow flag, for instance, is I'm brand new to role-playing. That's not your fault. It is a yellow flag for me because I am somebody who's been role-playing for the vast majority of my life. I might be intimidating for somebody who's brand new to role-playing, and I might not want to spend a whole lot of time bringing somebody up to speed. But it's not a red flag, it's a yellow flag. It's like, okay, I might be willing to play with you, but what are the things that balance out that yellow flag? I really like you as a person. That's one. You are a quick learner. That's two. You're a creative person. I really like the ideas that you have. That's three. You have experience tangentially to other avenues like creative writing or improvisational acting or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things might be like, great, that's more than enough to overwhelm the fact that you're brand new to role-playing. But if somebody comes up to me, a complete stranger, and says, I've never role-played before and I'd love to sit at your table, that yellow flag is probably not overcome. But red flags are things that I'd say, nope, if there's a red flag, then I am out. Red flags can include, I don't feel like you respect me. And my time is one of those things. Sure, you can't make it one time, that's fine, no problem. I understand. If you're constantly late to game, I'm going to be frustrated with you. I once played in a game where somebody kept, like, we would say we're going to have dinner, and then we're going to play after dinner, and then we'll stop at around like 10 o'clock. And this person would constantly show up after we had finished eating dinner and would bring food that they would have to prepare. Not like, oh, I brought myself a sandwich so I can eat it while we're playing, but like, I brought a thing that I have to put in the oven and I have to wait for it to cook, and then once it's out I gotta plate it, and then I gotta eat it, and it's messy food, so I have to sit up at a table instead of hanging out on a couch, and it was always delaying us again and again. And I'm like, why can't you make it? Is it because you work too late? And she was just like, no, I just, I don't want to eat what you're eating. I want to eat something different. But because they were constantly late, that was something that I was like, that's a red flag for me. Because you are showing that you don't actually respect everybody's time. I don't care that you don't want to eat the same food that the rest of us do. It wasn't even a dietary restriction. It was just, yeah, you order from like a burger place and I would really prefer to make my own food. I think that's respectable, but make your food in advance. Anyway. So yellow flags, those you can put up. Red flags, no. And here I see red flags and I don't see the green flags. And a red flag is the sort of thing that I would say, if this doesn't get fixed and soon, then I can't get past it. So that's what I would do with your situation. And it sucks, because it sucks to try to tell your friends it's your fault. But in this case, I think it is. In Paximo, like I said, I think that you're the one who's most invested in respect, and I think that that's important. But like, when you quit, one of the things that has always made me hesitate to the sort of thing is that when I quit, what is it saying to the other players of the game, right? Am I saying you're not good enough? Am I saying you're the one who fucked this up for me? I don't like putting that on anybody else. I don't want to make people feel badly. Well, in this particular case, it sucks, but there isn't a way around it, which is why a clean break is often the best thing to do. Not give anybody an excuse to start thinking about it too deeply, and just say, oh, well, Paximo's out, so let's make it that the rest of us are out too. And that's kind of where I would be at for that, because it really does suck. I even have this panic when it's a game that we play here for RPGClinic. Not panic, panic's a strong word, but like when I'm like, I think the game is over, I don't want people to think, I think the game's over because you're not playing well enough. And like, of course, that's ridiculous. It's stupid. But I've had so many experiences where that's been the case that it's still something that crops up in my mind. When I was the one who initially pushed for the end of our Star Wars campaign from, several years ago, because I wasn't clicking with it. And I was worried that if I said I'm not clicking with it, that like my players would be insulted or that they would be disappointed in me. They weren't. I didn't have to worry about that. They cared about my enjoyment of the game. Those are the kinds of players you want. So, when quitting in a situation where other people aren't receptive to hearing criticism, would I phrase it more as, hey, I have stuff going on, or hey, I have stuff, but part of that stuff is you? Is it better to be honest or just get out? So if they're not receptive to hearing criticism, then you say, I can't play. You try that on. And if they push, if they're like, why can't you play? Why are you quitting? Why are you doing this? Then I would be honest without directing the criticism. I would say, in this particular scenario, and again, I don't have all the context, but in this particular scenario, I would say, I have to quit because I'm afraid I don't have enough free time to keep committing to game time, and then it doesn't happen. And it's happened so often that I'm afraid I just can't trust that it isn't going to keep happening. So I have to stop. That's one way to put it, right? It's make it not a, you fucked this up for me, but make it a, I can't deal with this anymore. And if they're going to be annoyed by it, if they're going to protest or complain, or if they're going to say like, well, it's not that big a deal, that's on them. It's not on you. But you can rightfully say, this is something that I can't put up with anymore. If you wanted to put it in terms of the DM and the way the DM's been reacting to people or railroading or whatever, you can say, I'm looking for a game that's a bit more compatible with me. I need to have a certain amount of table talk at my games. I need to be able to relax and socialize during games. That's clearly not something that you want. So I need to step back and need to find a game where I can do that. Or I need to find a game where I feel like it's a bit more open-ended, because I like to be able to explore and take hard turns and twists in the game that are brought on by me. That's a way to say, I don't like your railroading, but making it a you statement as opposed to making it a me statement as opposed to a you statement. I need this, so I'm going to go look for it, instead of you do this and it sucks. Inevitably, people's feelings are still going to get hurt. But position it as, this is something that I need. You're not telling somebody you have to change. You're saying, I have to find the thing that I want. Just a much more reasonable tactic to take if you're trying to truly find something for you. You're not quitting in order to make other people feel badly. You're quitting in order to make sure that you get to enjoy yourself. You get to have what you want. That's how I would put it. If they are receptive to criticism, talk to them rationally and normally. But I'll point out that giving criticism is often as hard as receiving it, sometimes more so. When I was in university, I've said this before on this stream, I had a design class, Design 201, Design for the Theater 201, and we didn't learn a whole lot about designing for the theater. We kind of did, like it was still a good class for that, but the vastly most important lesson of that was how to give and receive criticism. The point was that every time that we were presenting something to the class would react to it. They would then try to make sure that their reactions were known to the person. But we weren't being judged just on the stuff that we did. We were also being graded on how we communicated our feelings about other people's work. It's hard. It's very hard to go up to somebody and say, this isn't good enough and I need you to do it again. It's very hard to go up to somebody who you don't have power over and to say, this is how I feel about it and I want you to consider it, even though my priorities might be different from your priorities. I still want you to listen to them because I think you might get something out of it. It's a tough balance to strike sometimes. But that's what I would do in this situation. You write 2 paragraphs and I spend an hour talking about it, but that's what I would do. That's what I would say. You deserve to play in a game that excites you. So I think you should find that. And I know that that's going to suck. It's the same way that I think you deserve to be in a relationship, should you choose to be in a relationship. You deserve to be in a relationship that excites you, a relationship that validates you, that gives you joy. And it sucks to break up with somebody, and it sucks to be alone. It really does. For a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people, it sucks for those sorts of things. And breaking up, sometimes you don't, just because it's not even about like, I don't really want to be with my partner anymore, but it's, I don't want to be alone. But breaking up with a partner is the first step that you have to take in order to find one that actually works for you. Quitting a role-playing game is the first step to free yourself up to find another group. So. And also sometimes games can be thrilling and fun and not even come up with a final conclusion ending and still be absolutely worthwhile. I've played in games recently where the story was not fully told from beginning to end, where I still had a lot of fun, where I really enjoyed the people who I spent time with, where I enjoyed the game and the play and the experience and doing something different. It was fantastic, thrilling, loved it. But at a certain point I was like, okay, unfortunately, I don't have the time for this that I once did. I can't commit to it the way that I want to. And so I have to say goodbye for now. Might come back, might not. But that doesn't mean that those moments that I spent weren't amazing, that they weren't so fun. I can put up with the story not being completely told. What I can't put up with is disappointing everybody by then flaking out on the game, by committing to it and then pulling back and recommitting, pulling back. That's not fun. That's not fun. That's not respectful of everyone's time. But I can still look back on it and say I genuinely enjoyed it. This wasn't a waste of my time. I really did have fun. And I hope that that's what you can pull away from this game, Paximo. I hope that you can look back on it and remember the times that it was good and say, boy, it was good. It was really worth it. But since it's not worth it anymore, it's time to move on. That's okay. That's worth it. Get your time back. Find another game. Find a better game. Find a game that works for you, your schedule, your needs, your hopes, desires at the table. Find that. Because you clearly show that you have the respect necessary to be an amazing person at the table. That's all I could want. That's all I could hope for you. It's what I hope I give when I sit at a table with other people. I hope that that's the way they see me. And I also know, with my limited time, that that's what I deserve as well. Now, there were other people who responded to this on Discord. We had Midmistrich, who said that any GM trying to actively control the players like this is a red flag to the highest degree. The cancellation means that your time isn't being respected. Yep. And it overall sounds unfun. I can't imagine enjoying it. It doesn't sound like you are either. So, hearing what we've got here. It is the fact that cancellations happen the day of, ranging from about 6 hours to 5 minutes before. And if the reason is I'm tired, I have a headache, I'm not feeling it tonight. Okay. So this was brought up. Haximo then wrote the following. Here, just some more before that. All the cancellations have been day of, ranging from about 6 hours before to 5 minutes before, reasons usually being I'm tired, I have a headache, I'm not feeling it tonight. I think I can count on one hand the number of actual last-minute emergencies. This is my first game, so I just assumed it was standard. I appreciate you guys letting me know it's not really, or if it's not something I need to just suck up, that it can bother me. I would say that for every session we played, we canceled 2 to 3. Okay, so first, yeah, that's absolutely not what it should be. Some people will say it's normal. Those people I feel sorry for. You shouldn't be canceling almost every session. This is canceling, 66 to 75% of your sessions. Blah. But also, look, consent is really important. Consent is the kind of thing that you have to have. But there is something that I will point out, and this is something that happens a lot, again, in relationships. Role-playing games are kind of like romantic partnerships in that, they tend to involve intimacy to a certain degree, emotional vulnerability, and also commitment. But here's the thing. If it's a minor inconvenience for you, like, I'm tired, there are degrees of tired. I had a day where I unexpectedly had to run a marathon and I'm physically exhausted. I don't even think I'm gonna be able to keep my eyes open. I literally am just going to stagger into bed as soon as I say this. I am so tired I can't play tonight. Sure. At that point, no problem. I'd rather that we not play than for you to show up and then fall asleep directly when we start playing. Yeah, absolutely. And I can understand that. And not only can I understand that, I would encourage you to take care of yourself. Real life's got to come first. But if it's, I had work today, I'm tired. Oftentimes, it takes a little bit of effort to overcome that hurdle, and then you are feeling much better. It is a way of saying, just put in a little bit of effort, and then in the end, it will be worthwhile. For relationships, this can sometimes be things like, hey, I know that we agreed to have dinner with the in-laws, but I'm tired and I just don't want to deal with it today. Well, is it that, or is it that you're just it's not something that I would really want to do, even though most of the time when you spend time with your in-laws, you have a good time. The meals are always good, the conversation's fine. It's just a little bit of extra effort to get your ass out the door. Once you're out the door, you're gonna have a good time, and in the end, you'll be like, I'm glad I did it. Role-playing games, sometimes that's the sort of thing you have to do. You gotta suck it up just a little bit, get yourself out there, and in the end, you will be glad that you did. It's too easy to make the excuse, I'm tired, when in fact, you're not that tired. You're just looking for that, I just don't want to overcome that small hurdle where I have to put on pants. I hope that's other people's problems, because sometimes it's my problem. Putting on pants, it's a big ask. Because that initial burst of effort is often the thing that stops us. It's the equivalent of saying I don't want to eat my vegetables, or I don't want to go to the gym today because but then you do and you're like, no, I feel better having done it, and hey, I actually enjoyed it in the end anyway. So if somebody says I'm tired or I'm not feeling it tonight, sometimes you fake it for 5 minutes and then you are feeling it. and that's better. There are times where this is quite analogous to straight up sex, right? Like you can say like, like I am not actively horny right now, but if I put in a little bit of effort, I might become horny because I can react to my partner's energy. Role-playing is an awful lot like sex. Hold on, wait a second, hold up. But this is sometimes a possibility, right? Like I'm not saying have sex when you don't want to. Absolutely not. If you don't want to, you shouldn't. And that's completely normal. But what I am saying is putting in a little bit of effort can then get you going. And for role-playing, that's often the case. So the analogy is now thrown out there and it's recorded and preserved for posterity. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, but there it is. You need to understand that the thing that's most important is for you to do what's right for you. So if you don't want to play, don't play. If you have a valid reason for not wanting to play, don't play. If you're not enjoying the game, don't play, but also then consider quitting so that people aren't just waiting for you. But what did the bot say? Oh yeah, if you hear a quotation that you don't like, you're like, okay. Yeah, the bot knows. But yeah, the situation ends up being, if you know that you don't want to, don't do it. If you just feel like it's going to be a little bit of effort, you have to make the calculus, you have to think about it, and you have to decide, is it worth it for everyone else? For me showing them the respect, and then knowing that I will probably get into it if I just make that small leap of effort. So it isn't just about sex. It can be as simple as like starting a new television show. Man, like that takes effort. I could watch something that I've seen a million times before, and that doesn't take as much engagement of my brain, so I can do it lazily, right? Like, yeah, sure, I can watch, this wouldn't be my particular choice, but I know a lot of people do it. I can watch Friends or Seinfeld or The Office for the umpteenth time because it's easy. But somebody's saying that they want to start a new television series and they want me to watch with them, and I'm like, oh, but a new series, then I have to actually pay attention. Put in a little bit of effort, and maybe it's going to be a fantastic series and you're going to really love it and it's going to be fantastic for you. So there, that's a way we can put it without bringing sex into the equation. Why not? But yeah, absolutely. If you are not interested, don't do it. But then consider just letting it go. For role-playing games, anyway. The best thing for me at this time is to find the group that you can best play with. And now we communicate all the time. So if we run into problems like this, we can talk about it. We can figure it out. If somebody's schedule changes, then we as a group sit down and say, how are we going to overcome this? How are we going to make it so that the schedule will not interfere with our ability to play? If, for instance, one of us suddenly got a job that said, I can't do Sundays anymore, we'd find a different stream time. We would just have to. We would find the time that we could do it. Or we would, if it was like a temporary thing, we would find a way to deal with it temporarily. Or if it was a permanent thing, that we would decide, are we going to keep doing this stream or not? We will figure it out. So that's where we're in for that. And then Paxmo says, yeah, I've pretty much concluded that leaving is the best option. It's just hard to put into motion. Having been involved in this situation for about 6 years or so, including the 2-year hiatus, I'm going to do it. I'm just preparing now. Yeah. You know what? One of the easiest ways for me to do this is, honestly, if it's online, send a message. And the thing that I would encourage you to do is avoid writing too much. Don't say, I quit, press enter, and then block everybody and walk away. Don't do that. But the message does not need to have 6 paragraphs of you reassuring everybody. That's the thing that isn't necessary here. The message that I would say is, hi, I've been doing a lot of thinking about this, and while I've had a ton of fun with this game and I'm going to carry fond memories of it, I'm afraid it's time for me to stop. The scheduling is too inconsistent for me, and I really need to find a game where I know that it will happen on a regular basis. I really appreciate the chance to play with all of you. Hope I get to do so again someday. Thanks a lot. Step back, step away. That's all you need to do. You don't need to... I want to reassure everybody that it's nobody's fault that I'm quitting. I want to make sure that everybody knows that every time that you missed a game because you weren't feeling it or because you had a headache, that it wasn't your fault and you're not the reason that the game is ending. I am the reason the game is ending. It's my thing. It's not you, it's me. Don't need that. You don't need to do that at all. Yeah, just dab. I also want to throw something out there because Aragorn mentioned it. Aragorn mentioned here two things. I've had moments with sudden cancellation because of migraines, but they're not rare and don't really feel like a relief because I'd rather be playing. I think, did you mean because they are rare as opposed to not rare, Aragorn, when you wrote this? But the thing is, a migraine is not, I have a headache and you can push through it, right? Like pop some Tylenol and then go for it. Migraine is a much more serious problem than that. Totally get, totally understand. But that's the equivalent of me saying like, I'm sorry, I can't play right now because I'm puking my guts out. Or I'm sorry, I can't play right now because I have an open wound. Migraines are serious business, and I would never hold that against anybody, right? Like that's a problem. Now, if for some reason the only times you ever got migraines was at 1:55 p.m. on Sundays, 5 minutes before we start playing, then I would be like, okay, what's going on? Is it like that you're having an allergic reaction to something in my house? Is it that this is happening at a specific time, and so we have to find a way to play in a better way? Is it the lighting setup that we have in here? I try to find out what the problem was, if it only ever happened when we were trying to game. Because unfortunately, and I speak from a little bit of experience here, which is very frustrating for me. I have, in a long time ago, this is before any of you knew me, I had a long-term partner who became chronically ill. And at a certain point, I started to feel like my relationship with this person had devolved from a romantic partnership to a caregiver one. I was the one who was, I would do things like walk the dog. We weren't living together, by the way, although I was spending a lot of time with her. I would walk her dog. I would take her to her hospital visits. I quit my job so that I could make sure that I was there to help take care of her and stuff like that. And all of those things are things that I was willing to do. Because I always had the sort of feeling like once we got past this, we could return to the romantic relationship that we had before. But at a certain point, I started to resent her. Because whenever she wanted to do something, she had the energy. She had the will. She was ready to go. And whenever I wanted to do something, well, now she didn't have the energy. She didn't have the spoons. And it happened often enough that I started to question, is it because she genuinely doesn't have the energy and it's bad luck? Is it because she is conserving her energy for what she wants to do and never bothering to conserve her energy for things that I want to do? Or is she lying to me and then claiming she doesn't have the energy? Because that's easier than for her just to say, I don't want to do what you want to do. And I have the answer for you. With time separating me from that, I no longer know. And I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. In fact, I'm actually definitely going to give her the benefit of the doubt for this. But the fact that I didn't have the trust there, that was a bad sign. That was a bad sign. And I started to resent the fact that she was sick because it meant that I was feeling unfulfilled. Anytime I wanted to do something, it just didn't happen. So for a role-playing game, that can kind of feel the same way. If somebody's excuse is constantly happening, even if it's a great excuse, you can still feel resentful of it because it's impacting you. And that is a valid way to feel. But if the trust is gone, you may not be able to may not be able to deal with that. So, weirdness, we should get you a dab emote. We should get you one. So, yeah, that's a thing. But that was a younger me, and I'm hopefully a wiser person now. And I hope that she is in a much better place. In fact, I imagine she is. I don't know, but the key, I think, for me in the end, was to recognize that if I felt that way, it was actually incumbent on me to advocate for myself, to speak up for myself, and to end it, because I didn't owe her. I could have ended it, and I didn't. I waited until she broke up with me, and maybe I shouldn't have. That's it. We're waiting for those new subscribers. Weirdness, we can still add better TTV emotes if you need some dabs. So, Paximo, just go for it. Quit. If you need permission, you get permission from us. Just write the message. It's not going to be fun, and clicking send is going to be rough, and then you will feel better having done it. The Band-Aid will be ripped. And it's not like it's going to be better all of a sudden and that everything is going to go away, because inevitably you will have probably people who will then kind of be like, well, come on. But I'm willing to wager that there's probably another couple of people sitting at that table who will be relieved. Maybe not right away, but eventually they will be like, you know what, this is for the best. And then get on the horse again. Go and look for the game that you deserve to play. But then this brings up another question, and this comes from MyFlow, who then mentions this. Since I saw the suggestion coming up in regards to the subject, maybe discussing how to recycle concepts and ideas from a game that went bad without taking the tainted memories with you might be interesting. I recall Disconcordia, which was the online role-playing game that we ran for a couple of years during the pandemic. It was a Discord game. Having a rule explicitly against using a character or character concept that you had from a previous game. The context of that must have been before my time. Okay, so as I mentioned before, Disconcordia was a... I'm just going to call it up here. The Disconcordia was a Discord game that was set in the Changeling the streaming universe that we had. So it had the same kind of setting. Some of the characters had carried over. Originally, they were meant to be more cameos, then they kind of ended up being played more and more often. But in the rules for character creation, and because the player's guide was something that I wrote, I know this intimately. God, there's 11,000 words in here. What the fuck was I thinking? Okay. So, character creation, where is it here? Come on. Okay, companions, house rules, server lines and veils, safety, information about the NPCs and the setting. Oh, I could also just look at the table of contents. Character creation. All right. In the rules, we said only original character concepts. We ask that you create a new character for Disconcordia. Porting character concepts from other campaigns, Changeling the Dreaming or otherwise, is forbidden, as is drawing too much from your own life experience. So, there's a couple of reasons why we made that request. And it's why and I'm going to get into this here, because I don't think that it's impossible for you to port an interesting character or a character concept that you had from one game to another. But there's a reason that we asked it for it not to happen here, and this is based on experiences that I've had running mass online games. So this was specific to this mass online game, but I would also encourage this in a lot of other games as well. The first is that if your character comes in with a shit ton of backstory, and I mean a shit ton, of backstory, it can make it difficult for you to play on the same level as other people, because your expectations are that the game will be similar or at least compatible with the character that you've made, and that might not be true. We also, immediately following in the player's guide, we also say the backstory box is small for a reason. You should learn most about your character through in-character play. Your character's backstory, especially their past trauma, should not overly define them. Porting a character often means that what you're doing is you're bringing so much baggage, so much lore and history with you, that it's hard for other people to keep up. And it's also hard for you to then become a natural part of the setting, because it's not like the game is going to be the same as the previous one. Might be in a different location, might be in a different world, might be in a different level of magic, might be a different system. And that's difficult for you to make that transition and then have everybody else react to that transition well. Imagine if I took an NPC from Montreal by Moonlight and then put them in a random werewolf game. Sure, I might be able to say, well, I have so much experience playing this character. I know how the character speaks. I know the character can draw upon their backstory and stuff like that. But then what happens if then that person, if I port this character over to another game, and then in that game they say, this is fine, but every glasswalker in this game has been driven out. There are no glasswalkers in this game, period. Well, wait a minute, my character's a glasswalker. Okay, so I'll change that about my character. Now my character's not a glasswalker, my character's going to be a bone gnawer instead. Well, that's a fundamental change, and therefore now I am bending over backwards to try to fix and port the character, when in fact coming up with a new one is probably going to be easier in the first place. So that's one. Two, there is the issue that you can have where when you port that character over, you can get upset when things don't go the way that you want. It's common because you already have an idea of where you want your character to go, but everyone else does not. They don't have the same shared experience that you do. So you might say, well, my character is destined to become the best swordsman in all the land. And in this game, they may be like, yeah, but we don't really pay that much attention to combat. And you're like, but this is what my character wants. And the thing is, if you had created the character from scratch, you would have spoken with your game master, you would have spoken with the other players, and you would have found a way to make that concept work. Since you're taking a character that already exists, rough. So, like what Requiem is saying, recycling a concept is something that's a little bit better. I even said in the original player's guide, porting character concepts from other campaigns is forbidden. The thing is, concept is I would probably reword it today saying porting characters from other campaigns. A concept like, I want to play a fortune teller. Yeah, you can play a fortune teller in 2 different games and they can be 2 different characters, and that's fine. I just expect people not to have to expect everyone else to bend to you because your character is already set in stone. That's the danger. We also saw some of this in terms of the mechanics when we went from Exalted 3rd Edition to Exalted Essence and Exalted Witch Academy. We ported the characters and it became very unsatisfying for the players because the characters weren't capable of doing the same things that they were before. They lost abilities and gained abilities, and then the characters didn't feel the same. And they struggled with that. So that's an issue. That's just an issue that we have to deal with. But that's because you have tainted memories also from a game that went bad, right? Like, come up with a new story. It's okay. No one's gonna blame you. There are so many new stories out there. It's kind of like how everybody complains about sequels, right? Like, why can't Hollywood make anything new? Well, we like sequels, and sequels are fun. But I could encourage you to take a little bit of extra effort and try something new. Sure, play another rogue, but play a different rogue. Play a rogue that's examining something that you didn't get a chance to examine before, instead of just playing the same rogue again. And if it's a character that you really want to keep playing as, you're a true specialist, you're like, if I can't play a cat girl, then I'm not playing. Okay, play a cat girl, that's fine. But be open to the fact that this cat girl cannot be the same as the cat girl you played before. I don't mean to bag on cat girls, but they're one of the specialist tropes. This is very common among role players. Not like every game I see it, but I've seen it often enough that it's common that you'll have people who are like, I really like the idea of playing an anthropomorphic animal. and go for it. That's great. But like, it becomes the thing that they really want to do. And for some of these people, I kind of want to say like, it's okay, you're a furry. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, you don't need to deny that. Like, you can just be a furry. It's okay. I've played the same character in multiple games, and in all cases I've wiped them back to their starting points and let them develop differently, a few branches from the same tree. But most of the time I make the character for the game because buying into the setup of the game makes the best characters. Yep, that's basically what I'm trying to point out here. But also, because we had so many different characters in Disconcordia, and because getting a new character into the game was a time investment for the storyteller who was working with them, in this particular case, it was just easy for us to say, look, just please don't, because we don't want to like spend extra time trying to make this work, because this was all volunteer basis. We were putting hours and hours a day into this thing, and doing character creation with somebody often was like a couple of hours of work. So that was hours that instead of putting it into the actual game, it was doing bookkeeping with somebody. So it was just easier for us to say like, look, for this one, please try something different. So that we don't have to like go over to make sure that your character will be compatible. It was just easier to say like, let's start from the thing. Now, when you're saying things like tendencies are not things that I complain about. So Requiem says, I have a tendency to recycle the former soldier concept in new systems I play, but that's more of a, this system is new, there's going to be a lot I don't understand, so I'm sticking with something that I'm familiar with to start. Yep. That's fine. Because that's just an archetype that you're then bringing forward instead of a character. So yeah, if I were to rewrite that sentence, I would take concept out of the sentence. I would say, don't bring a character. You could bring a concept, as long as you're willing to take that concept in a new direction. That's what I would do for this particular thing. I'll also point out that, just to close on that one, we also say drawing too much from your own life experience. There were two reasons for that. The first is, we often would run into, and this is something that I've had, because I've run several online games, like mass online games, and it's very common for somebody to bring their trauma into a game so that they can process it another way, and that's not fair to other people. If you want to bring your trauma into a game and you never make it anyone else's problem and you're dealing with it in a healthy manner, go for it, that's fine. But we would have people come in and it would be clearly something that was about themselves, and then they made it everybody else's problem, and they'd have to run around and like encourage them and guide them and counsel them, and they would have out of character freakouts if people didn't react in exactly the way that they expected, and it's not fair. Game isn't therapy. You shouldn't expect everyone else to be unpaid therapists for you. So that's one thing that we did. One of the tragic things about this is often things that I think people really could use the help with. And there are ways to do it in a healthy way. I have interacted with several different people who used role-playing as a way to step into transitioning to another gender. And the thing that they did that was better for everybody, including themselves, is that they didn't kind of use this as they use this as a way to explore instead of as a means of therapy. One person did this and became extremely upset about misgendering, except for the fact that half the time the misgendering came from themselves. So they weren't really upset with anybody else, they were upset with themselves, and it was really frustrating for them, and it caused a lot of blow-ups and drama, and I feel really badly for that person at the time. This was over 20 years ago. But the reality was they weren't ready to deal with this in that particular framework, and in the context of the game, it was probably not the right place for them to explore it. And I felt badly because like I would hope, I would really want for this person to be able to explore this sort of thing in a nice, welcoming, nurturing environment, which role-playing games can absolutely be. But you're also asking a lot of other people to like handle your intense, psychological trauma, which they're not equipped for. So this happens a lot in mass games because it's kind of cheap, easy, and anonymous. So we asked for people not to do it. It still happened, and we did have to nix some character concepts as a result, including banning at least one person. So, Weirdness, I totally get it. I have the same thing, right? My trauma impacts so much of my life, I enjoy having a couple of hours away from it. Yep. That's part of the reason why role-playing is great. Sometimes you play your trauma because you want to examine it. Sometimes you escape your trauma because you need to put distance from yourself from it, and both are valid. What's not valid is making it everyone else's problem at the same time. That's not fair to them, and it's not fair to you. They're not trained to deal with that sort of thing. So they might say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, and that might hurt you even more. So that's kind of it, right? Like I would not presume to know how to handle certain issues at all. So if you bring those issues into game, I may not react the way that you need. It's not even that I might not react the way that you want, I might not react the way that you need. So that ends up being tough. It ends up being a difficult call. Oof. But yeah, that's one thing that I would hope for a lot of people. It's not escapism if you bring the thing you want to escape from in game. So games do not always have to be escapism. You just have to know what is escapism and what isn't, and not confuse the two. So, as an example, for instance, I like using role-playing to examine situations of people who I'm not. Right? I like seeing things as seen by different sides. Like I like exploring a bunch of different sides around certain scenarios. And in doing so, I like to look at it from people who I am not, right? Like, how would I react to this particular problem if I was filthy rich? How would I react to this problem if I had no assets at all? How would I react to this problem if I was from a different country? If I was a different gender? If I was a different sexuality? If I was a different age? These are things that fascinate me, and they're great. But I also have to make sure that what I'm not doing here is making definitive statements that now saying like, I understand the condition of the poor because I role-played a poor person once. Like, no, right? Like, I have to understand that there are limits to how far role-playing can go. But I also have to understand that I should not bring something into a game that I don't want to deal with. We have our lines and veils for a reason. We have lines in our games that very specifically, for instance, says that sexual assault is not something that we want in our games. I don't want to deal with that. Now, I don't think that it would be a good idea for me to say, but I want to work through some traumas of my past. So let's bring in this trauma that I experienced a long time ago so that I can confront it in front of not only my friends, but also an audience, and then post that shit on YouTube. No, don't want to do that. It's not a wise idea. So I don't. And I don't think you should either. And I would ask that you not, because that would be very awkward. Are there any other questions? Because we spent a lot of time on this particular topic, and then some stuff from MyFlow came in, but like if there are other questions or other observations that you have, now's a really good time to bring them up in the chat, because I'm curious what your thoughts are. I've been very thirsty today. Clearly I just didn't drink enough water. That's on me. Regardless, I mean, like, this is a tough concept to talk about. Sometimes it's serious, but I'm glad that we got the chance to do so. I wasn't prepared again. No, that's fine, weirdness. Absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We got a lot out of the text that was written here, and that's why I thought that it would be good to come up with a clinic hours. Clinic hours is the kind of thing that runs when there's enough stuff to talk about. So that's why your questions are important, your comments, your experiences, because then we have a chance to sit down and deal with it. Thirsty or thirsty, Requiem? Nope, just straight up hydration today. That's where I'm at. I just, it's starting to get a bit warmer maybe. It's warm in this office if I don't have air conditioning on, just because there's several pieces of technology in here and they all emit heat. Yeah, normally we're not this narrow in scope, but hey, today we were. Therefore, if we don't have other things, I'll just make sure to clear this. So tomorrow at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we will have our second session of Datafall, our Exalted game set in a cyberpunk shard. That is something that I'm excited for. Still kind of feeling at that game, but I have a feeling like it's going to take off, and I'm very happy with. Pinky Pact also, I believe, will be tomorrow as well. That's following our game that'll start at 6 Eastern. Rucking asks, what's the most interesting character concept I ever played with? As in me as a player, or as in the most interesting character concept where I was at the table and somebody else was? Pinky Pact after. No, of course, Pinky Pact. I always like Pinky Pact. Yeah, just curious what you mean. If you're talking about the most interesting character concept that I've played with, where I was at the table and somebody else was playing it, it's kind of hard for me to say. And part of the reason why it's hard for me to say is you've kind of seen them. They're here. They're in RPGClinic. There's a lot of interesting things that I've seen come out of this that I think are very cool. Some of the most interesting ones are the ones that you see now in Datafall. I know a bit more about these characters because I spent the time creating them, but I've also spent some private time one-on-one discussing the backstories and secrets that these characters may have. So I think that these are some interesting ones. I'm really curious how this is going to fall out, because there's a lot of hidden depth to these characters, even though we've only spent a little bit of time with them. I'm curious to see what's going to happen in the future. But in terms of interesting character concepts, I like ones where people are not afraid to buck tradition, but that people are also not afraid to buy into stereotype. And I don't mean that in like stereotypes are good. Like I should probably find a better way to put it, like buy into the archetype. But like I find an awful lot of times players will say, well, I want to play an X, but I want to play the opposite of what X stands for. Such as I want to be a rogue, but I want to be a completely law-abiding rogue that never does anything other than help people. Okay, that's cool. Like I think that's a really interesting character concept. Go for it. But sometimes, especially in White Wolf games, it gets to the point where I'm like, I really wish that someday somebody would play a character that's just like, I want to play a Bruja, and this Bruja is an anarchist and likes to punch shit. Like, I would love that. Because sometimes it's buying into the stereotype that can actually be great, as opposed to, but I want to be the special one who isn't like all the others. It is common, and it's not that it's bad, and I've absolutely played, including on this channel, I've played with people who like find ways to step away from their expectations. But there are also times where I really love it when they buy into them. An example of that would be Sophia from Changing the Streaming. I am a she who likes commoners. I am a she who gets along well with everybody. Yep. Very common for a player character, because player characters don't often want to be othered, right? Like you want to be the hero, and I think that that's appropriate. In fact, I would encourage that, right? It's very difficult sometimes to play with somebody who's like, well, I'm playing a she, but I fucking hate every other commoner. I think they're dirt beneath my boot. That would suck. But Sophia was also very she-like in other ways. There were parts where Sophia could be vain, where Sophia could have these moments where it's like, but this is the way things go, and not necessarily kind of clue into what commoners would actually believe or want. And I thought that was great, right? In a way, we're bucking some tradition, but we're not solving all the problems. We're still carrying forward some of the stuff that she had to deal with. So that was interesting for me. In terms of casts for Exalted Requiem, so this is something that is interesting and something you will see a little bit more of in Datafall. One thing that I will say is that I feel very strongly that your cast is not the thing that should straitjacket you into the character that you want to play, because casts are very, very flexible. For instance, Dawn casts are very good at fighting stuff, right? Like a Dawn cast's cast abilities are things like melee, brawl, war, right? Like, but that's not terribly interesting, especially because why do you need to have 4 different combat abilities? But you also have favorite abilities, and the favorite abilities can be any ones that you want. So you can be a Dawn cast who is very high up on things like socialize or bureaucracy. And I would argue that saying, well, then why don't you play an Eclipse is the wrong way to look at it. Look at it instead of, but what happens if a Dawn is like this? That's the important part. It is incorrect to also assume, in the case of Solar Exalted, that the best combatant must always be a Dawn cast. I think that's limited. I think that on average, Dawn casts are more likely to be stronger in combat than other characters, but that's an average. And outliers are where the game gets interesting. So, I think you'll see some of that in Datafall coming up. There's already questions that people have about, for instance, the Admiral. And why does Distant Smoke have this armada at his beck and call? But he's not journeys and he's not battles. He's a chosen of serenity. We'll see. But don't forget, a whole lot of favorite abilities that you can buy. And also, you're allowed to buy abilities that aren't your caster favorite ability. You can even buy them high. You can even buy charms for them. You can even buy high level charms for them. Just because something isn't efficient doesn't mean it won't happen. So, in terms of character concepts, that's kind of where I'm at. I want people to not only buy into being special, I want them to also buy into what makes them what they are. Why are they who they are? And what makes them interesting, not just from a snowflake standpoint, my uniqueness, but also how am I like other characters? How do I fit into the world? Therefore, with that, I think we're going to call it there. I look forward to seeing as many of you as I can tomorrow with our second session for Datafall. Then, tune into Pinky Pact after that. Following that, I'm sure there will be streams throughout the week. I'm sorry that Drew Crew didn't air this day, but we still got some tuned action from Scott and from Nomhair earlier this morning. I'm sure that VOD is going to go up. But in the meantime, I will just remind you, no matter what, kind of the basic thing that you can draw from any of these things is if you have a problem with a game, it isn't always the easiest option. In fact, often it is one of the harder ones, but often the most effective solution is to use your word hole. See you next time.